Hello everyone, great to have you on the channel here of MeteoMark Weather. Welcome. We're going to get right into coverage here on dangerous, which is going to be a monster hurricane, Hurricane Helene. Let's get into it. All right, so if we take a look at infrared satellite view here, this is the three-dimensional view. This system really has a lot going for it. You see most of the heaviest convections on the south side. This really hit Cancun earlier with tremendous wind, rain, and surge. So this will be heading northeastward here towards Florida. And I wanted to show you this just as the sun was going down over Helene here. Look at the visible satellite photo. You can also see the lightning strikes on some of these outer bands, but this is becoming a very tightly wound system. And if we take a look at the track of our hurricane here, we are looking at this rapidly intensifying to a 2 overnight and rapidly to a 4. I think this thing could peak between 130, 140 mile per hour winds. Yep, it does have its eye on Apalachicola here, and especially points eastward as well on the eastern eye wall. So this is what we're looking at here. This is going to be a monster hurricane. And I want to make note on this. Look at the tropical storm force winds here. Massive circulation. This is coming towards Florida. Look at this. And hurricane force winds, these are only going to grow in time. So let's take a look at our simulated satellite view infrared here on our HWRF model. And this puts things in perspective here. Look at this. This thing's really going to be wrapping up as we head towards 8 a.m. on Thursday. Extreme deepening. Look at this. Wow, that is pretty intense. That is that classic donut shaped that many of these Category 4 storms achieve. And it is a buzzsaw, and it is going to remain a buzzsaw very well inland here. Look at that. All the way up into parts of Georgia. So there you have it. This is looking like a monster hurricane at this point. All right, so let's start off with our tropical model here, our HWRF, and then we'll show you the GFS and the European model momentarily. This is what we got going on. A tremendous hit to Cancun. Pretty strong hurricane hitting with outer bands here, and some of the core also scraped parts of Cancun here today. So as this moves away, it's going to be intensifying very rapidly and deepening. And you can see these outer feeder bands already reaching, look at this. This is 5 a.m. on Thursday morning. So already Tampa area, Cape Coral, these areas of the West Coast. And look at this. As we continue, this is heading right towards the Big Bend here of Florida. Look at how deep this gets. Our HWRF model's taking this all the way down to 926 millibars. This would push feeder bands well south into Cape Coral, Northport, and especially Tampa Bay, and then northeastward. This part of the coast really has to stay tuned. And if you're in one of those evacuation zones, you might want to think about it, because this is going to be a monster. Look at this. 922 millibars. This is 8 p.m. So unfortunately, this is going to be making landfall after dark. This is the worst timing. So it's going to be coming ashore here in the evening hours of Thursday. And it's going to be accelerating very quickly. You can see towards, let me see if I can just slow this down. It's really difficult. 11 p.m. The center of the eye is already in South Georgia. Very concerned about that inland buzzsaw effect. Tremendous damaging winds. This is going to actually propagate all the way up into western North Carolina. These southern Appalachians, watch out. The ridge tops are going to really get blasted here. But look at this. As this is making landfall, I do want to make note of something. There's going to be a very large tornado threat here with these eastern feeder bands. So keep that in mind as well. Swells and surge are going to be over 15 feet here. So the surge is going to be tremendous. And as this moves inland, here's 2 a.m. Friday morning. This is just a massive buzzsaw. The fact that it's moving so quickly doesn't allow it as much time to weaken. There will be dry air rushing in behind it and wind shear, but the problem is the wind speed's going to continue. So we're going to have hurricane gusts well into central and potentially northern Georgia. And look at these feeder bands coming into South Carolina as well, up to just west of Charlotte there. Look at this. As we continue into 8 a.m., it's all the way up into eastern Tennessee. So this thing is really moving it. And unfortunately, it's going to take this big ball of wind and torrential rain with it. It is going to be really stormy. And there you see the upper level low. the cutoff low, so to speak, capturing the storm and retrograding it back towards the Mississippi River Valley. And don't forget, before we continue with more coverage on Hurricane Helene, if you made it this far in the video and you like it, smash that like button, everyone. It really does help. Question or comment down below. I love to read your questions or comments. And don't forget, if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe bell notification button so you're alerted with all my future weather video updates. And there is a potential fix. Some of you have been saying for the notifications, if you haven't been getting my notifications or they've been very late, try unsubscribing and then hit subscribe again. So unsubscribe, then subscribe again, and then hit the bell notification button. That's been fixing it for some people. Let's continue. All right, so our European run here looking very similar as we continue through the early hours of Thursday here. You can see extreme deepening with this system, and right around 5 p.m., it's right in line with Tampa Bay here. In fact, this is a little disturbing. The European model has wobbled just to the east here. So the eastern eye wall dangerously close here to Tampa Bay. That's a trend we're going to have to watch out here. But it may just be one model run. We'll see. But there it is, moving up along the coast. And the fact that this has it's going to have such a large eye wall and circulation, this is going to be tremendous impacts here throughout Florida. You can already see the storm chasers already setting up, denoted by these icons here. So this is the area that's going to have some tremendous damage and surge along with it. You can see all the way from Apalachicola all the way down to, wow, Cedar Key, just north of St. Petersburg, Tampa area. This area is really ground zero. There it is, 8 p.m. So it looks like just after 8 p.m., that's when it's going to come shore. And there into South Georgia, you can see this thing still packing a punch. So inland damaging wind buzzsaw effect continues towards the north, all the way into North Georgia, South Carolina, Western North Carolina, and Eastern Tennessee here through 8 a.m. on Friday. And look how that moves up into portions of, look at that, the European model's taking this pretty far north into the Ohio Valley. That's a trend we'll have to keep an eye on here. And then this low is going to pivot back this direction. All right, so the newest GFS is just starting to load here. So let's see how far we can make it with it. It's moving away from Cancun. Look up some of the videos. It was a tremendous day here for Cancun. It looks stronger than a Category 1 there, I can tell you that. But here it is. It looks like we can get coverage all the way to the coastline here. Here is 11 a.m., and I want to make note, you can really see it on the GFS. Look at the surge of moisture. This is in interaction with the trough. And of course, the upper low is kind of stuck back in this area. So that is already going to saturate the ground across North Florida and Georgia and South Carolina. And that's not good news. But here it is as we head through the afternoon hours. I got to go take it really slow because it's going to move so fast. It's going to be intensifying pretty rapidly too. Here's the GFS. It's looking a little better for Tampa Bay, a little further to the west than the Euro. The Euro was right in this area, whereas the GFS is a little further to the west. So there it is, tightly wound, 974 millibars. And then moving up, let's see if I can take this as slow as possible. It really is hard to see this. There it is, 8 p.m., maybe a tad bit slower than the other two models, but there it is coming ashore at 8 p.m. or just slightly after. And then moving right up through northern Georgia here, just southeast of Valdosta, Georgia. And then we have that buzzsaw effect inland to eastern parts and central parts of Georgia up to South Carolina. And that continues towards the north extremely rapidly through Friday morning. And let's see how far we can take it. There it is, the GFS, the last couple frames up to the Ohio Valley and the Mississippi River Valley and parts of the Mid-Atlantic as well. And here we go. I just wanted to show you this briefly. We are looking at those models taking this up towards a Category 4 with potentially as high as 120 knot winds. I think this thing maxes between 130 and 140. And here we go with our wind modeling here. This is the GFS deepening this pretty rapidly towards the coast as we get towards 8 p.m. on Thursday. There it is moving well inland, but you can see the heaviest winds there, 50, 60 knots. It only goes up to 60 knots on this map. If we take a look at gusts here we go. This can give us a really good idea. 70 mile-an-hour gusts getting into Sarasota, Tampa there. And then that just blasts northward. Look at that area of 75 plus. Of course, our scale doesn't go up beyond that, unfortunately, but you know those winds are going to be well up over 130, 140. in many of these areas. And if we put the whole perspective here, because I really want to show Georgia as well, there it is, 84-mile-an-hour gusts coming inland there into Florida, 83, 78. This goes to show you what a buzzsaw this thing is going to be once it gets inland here and has very little time to weaken because the forward speed and those winds will continue to howl even further north here into South Carolina, western North Carolina, eastern Tennessee. And National Hurricane Center putting out 15 to 20 feet. Look at that. All in the fuchsia colors here. That is life-threatening and catastrophic storm surge. This would be associated with a Category 4 landfall here. This is a lot of water that's going to be moving, even 5 to 8 down to Tampa Bay here, and 3 to 5 all the way down the coastline here. All right, so looking at our dry air analysis here, thanks to Tropical Tidbits, you can see this storm rapidly deepening here on the GFS. This is what's not going to really happen until it's too late, though. See this dry air trying to wrap around? It's just way too far back here. So that's not going to be the choke point at this point, not till we get inland. We do start to see that precipitation is going to cut off very abruptly here into northern Florida, which is going to be great for you. But look at this. This thing's going to move inland so fast that wind and moisture is just going to blast north here. And you see it's actually going to be much drier here to the south than it is to the north. Very lopsided. And as we continue to go out here in time, it's really interesting to see this big tropical wave moving across the Caribbean here. There it is, towards parts of Jamaica and eventually Central America here. That's going to bring a lot of moisture, and it's a strung out area of low pressure that we'll be looking at. This is through September 30th. As we take a look at the European model here, very similar story. The one thing to note on the Euro, look at how it's deepening this. So these models are playing catch up here, 954. Look at that. So this thing's going to go really deep fast. Category 4, a good bet now. And look at that. There's the choke point, but it's further inland here for the dry air. And then as we go out here in time on the European model, there's that wave moving through about Monday, September 30th, we saw on the GFS. But watch this. There's another wave that might spin up towards Belize. Moisture trying to stream north here into Florida, but there is that big wave that could become a tropical storm here near the northern Lesser Antilles and Virgin Islands. This is towards October 5th. And if we take a look at wind shear, very similar story. We have no wind shear, as you can see. You have to go well to the west and the north here. And you're not going to get into this wind shear until it makes landfall. Look at this. We got colors here down 5 or below knots. So this thing has a clear shot for the coastline for extreme strengthening until it gets inland and then becomes extra tropical very quickly. All right, so rainfall amounts here, it is just, this is bad. You can see, especially northern Florida, Georgia, even eastern Alabama now, Tennessee, western South Carolina, North Carolina there, parts of Kentucky as well. This is really bad. Let's zoom in here. And here we go to the state of Florida. Wow. Yeah, this is really bad. Most of these areas here into the orange is like 6 to as much as 10 inches of rain. The good news, however, if there is some good news here, is the forward speed of the storm. So this is going to help us limit, us from getting those 15 to 20 inch amounts. Not to say there won't be some 15 to 20 inch amounts, but it is going to limit it to an extent. As we get into the Caribbean here, the Western Caribbean, there it is, Western Cuba, Cancun, you could see an additional 90 to 100 millimeters here, 3 to 4 inches of rain. And look at this, as we continue through time here, I don't want to leave Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, Central America, and the rest of the Caribbean out here. As we get into next week, we're going to start seeing more tropical wave action here across the Central and Western Caribbean. So that's going to add more rainfall here. Jamaica, Cayman Islands, you could see more rain, 60 to maybe as much as 90 millimeters here, 2.5 to 3.5 inches. And one thing I want to make note too next week, look at Central America. This area too primed for these tropical waves, 100 to 125 millimeters. That's a solid 4 to as much as 6 inches. And as we get into the Eastern Caribbean through the Bahamas here, yeah, we got a tropical wave this weekend, late this week into the weekend, moving through the Lesser Antilles all the way through Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, Haiti. these areas, and then another wave behind it. That's that one that keeps showing up here on the European model, and it's very persistent. Generally, we're looking at a solid 50 to as much as 80 millimeters of rainfall here, putting you up towards about an inch to as much as 2.5 inches. All right, so our future radar here, yeah, that trough that we're dealing with in the southeast goes all the way up to the northeast. You're getting showers up here, but tremendous thunderstorms dropping torrential rains here through parts of Alabama, North Florida, and Georgia, eastern Tennessee, and all the way up the Appalachians here. But here we go. Let's just put our future radar through 5 a.m. Thursday. Let's zoom in. Yeah, you're going to be still dealing with rain here into the northeast as well. But the big story here is Helene coverage. Look at this. As this storm continues towards the coastline, here's 3 p.m. Looks like our HRRR mesoscale models are a little bit ahead of schedule here. Here's 5 p.m., 7 p.m. So, and a little bit further to the west, just slightly here. So here it is, HRRR coming in at 968 millibars and a landfall right at 8 p.m. there. Just east of Tallahassee with the western eye wall in Tallahassee. So if we continue this, there's that inland buzzsaw effect continuing up through Macon, Augusta, and South Carolina, and unfortunately all the way into the southern Appalachians here. And I want to make note for something. Look at this feeder band all the way into North Carolina now. This is bad news on already saturated ground. You don't need any more rain here, especially in North Carolina. And that just continues to the north. We do have that blocking high, so it's forced to the west here. And there's one thing I want to make note here of on the future radar. You can essentially see these feeder bands are going to be affecting all of the Florida Peninsula. Most of the Florida Peninsula at this point is under tropical storm or hurricane warnings. Tropical storm warnings exist through much of the peninsula areas here. And look at this, through 5 p.m., as this thing's making landfall, you're still going to be seeing these feeder bands, and any one of these can contain damaging wind, tornadic spin-ups here. So it's going to be a rough day across all of Florida. Surge all the way down the west coast of Florida as well. We'll get into the surge map, with this as well. So this is really getting to be a problem. And look at that, as we head through the weekend, we're still looking at these feeder bands from this hurricane well after landfall in South Florida. And if we take a look at it on the NAM 3 kilometer here, look at this. Yeah, the NAM is really blasting this thing upward into a monster. You can see towards 5 p.m., 6 p.m., it's a little bit slower on our NAM. Look at this. This is a little bit troubling. The NAM is slowing this way down. It's one model, though, so take it with a grain of salt here. But here it is, 10 p.m. This would allow more time for strengthening, which would be bad. Very much the same locations for most of these models. One thing to note is, yep, there's those feeder bands coming into Tampa, Cape Coral, all the way down the peninsula here. So most of you are going to feel tropical storm force winds outside of this main circulation, especially in those feeder bands. But look at Georgia, South Carolina. Tremendous inland problems here with wind damage and rainfall. And before we continue with more weather, check out these awesome, amazing maps that you won't find anywhere else.
I am proud to announce that I am now an affiliate with Trilogy Maps. TrilogyMaps.com, bringing you the most digital, customizable maps found nowhere else on the internet. These maps are simply stunning. It's an advanced layering system that makes these maps great for making forecast maps with ease, or any other maps that you would like to display important information on. The resolution on these maps is simply amazing. From the detail of everything here in the States, and you can also create stunning, digital, professional layered maps from also across the entire world. And don't forget, in checkout, the discount code option, use my code, MeteoMark, hit apply, and you will get 20% off your order. So if you want the most professional, customizable, and affordable weather maps found nowhere else on the internet, look no further than TrilogyMaps.com. Link in the description down below along with your discount code.
As always, thank you for joining me, everyone, for this special hurricane coverage on what's going to be Major Hurricane Helene. I hope you tune in to all my future weather updates. Don't forget, I'm at MeteoMark.com. Also, you can find me on Facebook at MeteoMark. Also, Twitter at Weather Eastern. And don't forget, please smash that like button or question or comment down below. Share the video with all your friends and family. And don't forget, subscribe and hit that bell notification button.